With Dragonflight right around the corner, there are an absolute ton of classes that get some major updates. Some classes that felt a bit neglected before are now getting some major facelifts, making them great in either PvP or even in raiding, rather than before when they were really just not that viable. This is going to be a perfect time for you as a player to decide if you're going to keep your main or try something new come Dragonflight. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the channel. My name is Sky, and today we're going to be bringing you 5 super fun classes you can main in World of Warcraft Dragonflight. Starting off with number 1, the Druid. There are a ton of reasons why Druid is a super fun class, but what could be the number 1 reason is just how versatile and magnificent the entire class toolkit is. With 4 different specializations and access to 3 role types, you really are going to have your hands full with this class, but all in a good way. The Guardian Druid being the tank with the most health in the game and constant defensive uptime. Balanced Druid raining down non-stop astral and lunar energy to rip apart your foes from a distance. Restoration using its healing powers of nature and life to keep you and your allies fighting. And lastly, Feral Druid, an agile tiger whose spec is focused upon constant bleeds and massive ferocious bites for big burst. Druids are versatile combatants in that they can fulfill every role. Healing, tanking, damage dealing, you name it, they got it. It's critical that Druids tailor the form they choose to the situation, as each form bears a specific purpose. The Druid overall is mandatory to have in a raiding environment due to having easily one of the most powerful major cooldown toolkits in the entire game, including the ability to battle resurrect a fallen teammate during combat, and the option to give a massive AoE healing with Tranquility and Convoke the Spirits. The Druid's performance throughout most of Shadowlands was really good. Balanced Druids and Restoration Druids being pretty much S tier throughout the entirety of the expansion for raiding, and Guardian Druids still being an amazing tank option with how much damage mitigation they have almost permanently with Iron Fur and their massive health pools. Heading into Dragonflight, their class-specific talent trees is looking really good as well. In PvP, they perform mostly well too, with the addition to some Covenant abilities that help them dominate most of the early seasons. I'm sure we all remember getting one-shotted by Convoke the Spirits multiple times in Shadowlands. Overall, Druid is an amazing class that is great to have in your party, with strong versatility and very powerful cooldowns for your group or raid. If you're looking for a class that could truly do it all, Druid could easily be your main. Moving on to number 2, the Rogue. The Rogue is a spectacular option in terms of fun heading into Dragonflight, but that definitely isn't the only reason. A pure DPS class that has 3 specs that vary tremendously in terms of gameplay style, to always keep things fresh and exciting. An outlaw who specializes in cleave and gambling to get the best procs possible to annihilate foes with quick slashes from their dread blades. An assassination expert who applies tons of bleeds and poisons to rot down an enemy and dwindle them down until there is nothing left. And lastly, Subtlety Rogue, the master of burst damage coming from the shadows to quickly dispatch an enemy with massive bursts before they even know what hit them. Rogues often initiate combat with a surprise attack from the shadows, leading with vicious melee strikes. Rogue talents can strengthen their abilities to hide in the shadows, kill foes quick, launch deadly strikes, and survive in extended slugfests. Throughout the expansion and raiding, the Rogue is a very strong DPS class. All the specs have incredible DPS styles and variety. You really have unlimited options to choose from for almost every boss fight and encounter. A spec that's specialization in cleave and AoE with Outlaw, damage over time with Assassination, and massive burst with Subtlety. When it comes to their talent trees, the Rogue is in an incredible spot with all 3 specs able to get iconic abilities like Shadow Dance, Thistle Tea, Cold Blood, and Echoing Reprimand. It really seems like Rogue can have some insane theory crafting potential this upcoming expansion for the raiding environment. Rogue has close to the highest skill ceiling in the game, and if played properly, can beat almost anybody in the right circumstance. I think with the new solo shuffle feature coming out, Rogue can have the opportunity to have a ton of fun in queuing up alone. The Rogue is a great class overall in World of Warcraft, and there is a spec for almost every style of play for you out there. Poisons, bleeds, execute damage, burst damage, heavy cleave, more movement, more stealth abilities, you name it, they can have it now. They seem honestly like so much fun to play and dive into with the new talent trees, and I'm personally so excited to give this class a try and try to pump out some major damage this upcoming expansion. Moving on to number 3, the Warlock. If you don't think Warlock looks like an absolute ton of fun to play, then I don't think you're playing World of Warcraft. A pure DPS class with 3 very different gameplay styles that all look great in this upcoming expansion, and is even in discussion for being one of the top casters overall in Dragonflight. A non-stop demonic summoning king that takes the most hellish creatures to do your bidding in combat with demonology, the master of chaos and fire damage for instant cleave and burst damage with destruction, and the damage over time specialist that applies non-stop skin-melting shadow damage and abilities to rot down your enemies with affliction. Dominance is their aim, and they have found a path to it in the dark arts, Warlocks burn and destroy weakened foes with a combination of crippling illness and dark magic. The Master of Darkness brings Hellstones and Soulstones, as well as gateways to help with tons of mechanics and raids overall. All these are absolutely game-changing for your raid, increasing survivability and making at least one Warlock mandatory. All 3 Warlock DPS specs are amazing in at least one form of content, and they also have the huge benefit of having a pet to help them in combat. The DPS specs are incredibly flexible and able to fit any fight mechanics needed, like heavy cleave, execute phases, high mobility, you name it, they got it. You have to know that the Warlock is an incredibly high skill cap class though, but if you start to master it, you will definitely start feeling the power flow through your veins. You need to play with specific team compositions to really shine, but all 3 specs have the potential to be incredibly strong throughout the duration of the expansion. The Warlock is a very scary range caster class in World of Warcraft, with 3 super fun DPS specs, the class fantasy as being a dark spellcaster ready to sacrifice anything and anyone to come out on top is truly terrifying. Moving on to number 4, we have the Monk. Despite being one of the lowest played classes in the entire game, the Monk looks like so much fun in this next expansion. A class with the ability to play all 3 role types and could very well be one of the best classes easily overall heading into the new expansion. The very mobile Zen Master with Windwalker, who deals massive damage with kicks and furious melee blows. The Dizzy Brewmaster, who's attuned to withstand a punishment to protect his allies. And lastly, the Mistweaver Monk, who can channel mystical powers to heal and restore injured allies around him. Brewmaster could very easily be one of the most forgiving tank playstyles in the entire game, with guaranteed smooth damage intake from Stagger and Shuffle, on top of having fantastic defensive cooldowns and very high mobility to dodge raid mechanics. The mobility gets even higher with Windwalker, and they have nearly unparalleled AoE and cleave damage output. They fly around the battlefield at the highest rate possible to summon clones of themselves and their trusty Tiger Zuen to completely dismantle battalions of enemies at ease. With Mistweaver, their healing output is extremely high, which combined with their strong damage output and great mobility, makes them possibly the most valuable healer to bring to raids overall. For PvP, most of the time, the only competitive spec will be Windwalker, because the other 2 just haven't really been amazing other than a couple seasons at a time. But don't you worry, Windwalker is truly terrifying. On the beta and pre-patch so far, Windwalker is still keeping that same energy of being a strong candidate for being one of the top melee DPS. All throughout Shadowlands and even now, they're destroying enemies very quickly, even through defensives being active. High mobility, high burst, and a great toolkit for almost any matchup. What more could you ask for? Overall, the Monk is a super mobile, fast-paced karate master that is super fun and engaging to play with 3 different role type specs that offer a ton of versatility. And for our final class, we have, you guessed it, the Mage. The Mage is easily one of the most fun classes in World of Warcraft without a doubt. Another bonus is that the Mage in every expansion is a solid class overall. No matter what, there's always one spec that is going to be great in PvE, and one spec great in PvP. Fire Mage deals massive bursts in explosive manner. Frost Mage controls the battlefield with endless slows and roots to line up a deadly blow of frost attacks. And lastly, Arcane Mage, the manipulator of raw arcane magic, destroying enemies with overwhelming, tremendous power. Mages are students gifted with a keen intellect and unwavering discipline. The arcane magic available to the Magi is both great and dangerous, and thus revealed only to most devoted practitioners. As of late, Fire Mage really has been shining through more than the other 2 specs though. Fire Mage offers an excellent 1-minute burst window for incredible burst on both AoE and single target. Fire strengths include that they are fully mobile, they have strong execution damage, and they still have the best defensive toolkit in the game. If you're a mage capable of playing all 3 specs at a progression level, then you are in a very strong place for the raid you're progressing. They also bring portals for your team, food for recovery, and one of the few classes to bring a bloodlust effect with time warp, making them mandatory to have. In PvP, you typically only have 2 options max for real competitive PvP, and that's going to be Fire or Frost. Even in PvP, Frost Mage can help a team tremendously with endless slows and roots, making them pair very well with like Destruction Warlocks and even sometimes Rogues. But usually, the king of PvP for Mage is going to be Fire. Fire Mage has been dominating since the rework back a couple years ago, and they have not let off the gas pedal yet. Fire is always incredible because of the amount of CC and instant on-demand burst the spec has. And overall, the Mage is just a super safe caster DPS, with all 3 specs being great in some time period throughout the expansion, making them super versatile and fun with different and engaging rotations. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to bring this video to a close. What class do you plan on maining come Dragonflight? Is it the same old class you've been playing, or is it something completely new to you? Let us know in the comments below. I'm personally going to be maining a rogue, while Lance is going to be playing a Shadow Priest. But like always, I hope you have an amazing day. Be safe. My name's Sky from the Comeback Kids, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.